Hello there, my name is David Bompard, a customer operations engineer at Cloudera, and on this video we'll go through how to configure the HiveWarehouseConnector settings on Spark2. On today's agenda, we'll talk about the configuration scope, what are the requirements, the configuration process, and how to test the connection to the Hive catalog from Spark shell. Regarding the configuration scope, cluster versus application scope, these settings can be applied cluster-wide or per application, and it is completely up to the cluster administrator to decide which method works the best for his end users. For both methods, the requirements are the same. The main difference will be based on how we will be enabling the Hive Warehouse Connector support. If we want this to be enabled per application, then we will have to pass the configuration settings as an argument to the Spark script. Let's put an example using the Spark submit command. In case of the Spark submit command, we would have to execute Spark submit as we usually do, space --conf space property equals value. If we want to apply these configurations just once and enable Hive Warehouse Connector support for every application, making it transparent for the end user, then we will have to add the configuration settings to the Spark configuration files. So on each Spark application execution, the Spark defaults config file will be loaded and the support will be enabled by default. Before proceeding, let's collect the properties and values to be configured. So in regard to requirements, from Apache Hive perspective, LLP service must be enabled. The interactive query should be enabled if our use case requires access to Hive asset tables, which is the default table type on HTTP3. Enabling LLP is out of this video scope, while the steps can be found in our official documentation website. If you're not sure whether you'll be needing Hive Interactive enabled or not, please go ahead and enable it, as you will most likely need access to asset tables on Hive. From Apache Spark perspective, collect the following information from the Hive configuration settings after having enabled LLP service. So we'll be needing the URL for Hive Server 2 Interactive. This can be found at Ambari UI, click on Hive, Summary, and then just click on the copy button next to the string where the Hive Server 2 Interactive JDBC URL is. The URI for Metastore. This information can be found also in the Hive configs section. Go to Advanced Hive Interactive Site and then filter by hive.metastore URIs. Let's do the same for the other properties. So for the application name in the LLP service section, this is usually at LLP0 by default. The zookeeper host or hosts used by LLP. If Ambari is enabled, this can be found at the same place, Hive configs, advanced Hive site, and then filter by hive.zookeeper.quorum. If your cluster is secured, meaning you have Kerberos enabled, then there is an extra property to be collected, which is the Hive Server 2 principal. And this can be found by using the filter box in Ambari, and then type in hive.server2.authentication.kerberos.principal. Feel free to make a pause here and follow the examples and steps provided for each property. Now that we have all of the Hive property and values, let's proceed to configure Spark at cluster-wide to be able to use the Hive Warehouse Connector. So open up your Ambari UI, go to the Spark2 section, Configs, scroll down to Custom Spark2 defaults, and then click on the Add Property link. Next, select the bulk property add mode and proceed to enter one property equal value per line. Make sure to remove any trailing spaces on each line. Now click on Save and restart the Spark2 service. If we want to apply the same configurations per application and not cluster-wide, then here we have an example using the Spark shell command. Now let's make a pause and check the last configuration line. As we can read, --conf space spark.security.credentials.hiveserver2.enabled equals false, This property is only used and set to false if our Spark execution is in yarn client mode. For yarn cluster mode, this property should be set to true. After having configured our Spark2 to use the Hive Warehouse connector, we can use the following example as shown on this picture if we want to verify our connection from Spark is actually connected to the Hive catalog and displaying the database that we have in there. Thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in having more videos like this or still have some doubts on this topic, please join our community connection forums and post your questions or ideas. Thanks.